Hi, this is Shakira.
And this is Lia,
We're cooking up a great conversation.
starting with a cup of insights,
Add a tablespoon of fun.
a slice of drama,
Drama. A pinch of salt.
para may konting alat, and lots of pepe.
Siyempre, may anghang.
Welcome to Salt and Pepe Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Salt and Pepe Podcast. This is Shakir Season, welcoming you back to another great conversation.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Salt and Pepe Podcast. This is Lia and welcome to a new episode. Hello, how are you, Kia?
I'm good. Had a nice Mother's Day celebration. I hope our listeners were able to catch our Mother's Day episode.
Yeah, that was a
You
nice
know.
episode. If we've had already feedback about it, so thank you for those who listened. And how's Cooper? I'm sure Cooper enjoyed the day with the mumsies.
Cooper is our dog, and Simon
And
is our
Simon, yes.
20-year-old cat. So, we celebrate mothers of all kinds. So not just mothers who have given birth, but all different kinds of mothers, just like we said in our last episode. So
Yes, and we also got pala feedback from those who also listened to the previous episode from the Mother Day, our New York episode. So, a really nice New York story from our friend Liz, who was also a chatter then, and she goes, since we enjoy stories, which we really do, she had her unique New York story, which was really awesome. As in, it was very, tama ka, Liz, it was long, but
it's very
ang galing.
exciting.
One
It's
of a
very
kind,
nice.
pang
And
honey, pang human of New York story.
yeah, very New
If
York
nakakuha ka,
story.
yes, kung nakuha ka lang ng camera, ang ganda nun post na yon. But thank you for sharing and thank you for listening. And that was really nice New York story. Such a nice happy ending story too.
Thank you for telling that story. So
Yeah.
moving on to our episode for Mental Health Awareness Month, we decided to talk about people we've lost along the way and how we deal with grief and death.
Yes, so we're at that age that we are losing loved ones as well as people our age. So we thought it was great to discuss episode 9, the ones we've lost, an episode on grief. So we're hoping our listeners can learn something from this episode.
Yeah, so let's get down to it. I want to start from the beginning. I guess from childhood. When did you first encounter the concept of death?
Well, because when I was young, we got to reach our great grandmother and grandfather. So
Mhm.
that's the parents of my lola.
Mhm.
So that was really, really the first encounter.
Mhm.
We knew because when we still grew up, we saw great grand lolo and great grand. That's Lolo Ralph and Lola Sofia. So
Mhm.
we still got to meet them, beso
Mhm.
everything. But of course, they passed. But you were so young. So I was like, what, 5?
Mhm.
But of course, at the time, you're scared, right? So that was
Yeah.
my concept. Yung talagang, I couldn't look at the coffin because I knew them. I knew, but, of course, when you were young, parang horror story na agad yun, di ba? Parang pag sinabing death, parang nakakatakot. So, from then on, I couldn't look at coffins. Pero yung talagang death na I was already old enough to understand it was
Mhm.
really my lolo. Remember, I talk about my lolo in the past episodes because
Mhm.
I grew up with my lolo when my parents separated. He took care of us. So yun talaga yung close family member na passed. And it was, yun, nag-change yung concept ko ng death kasi nga, he
Kilala
was
mo na.
such a, oo, yun na, parang, actually yung kwento nun is, parang nagkaroon ng emergency, we all went to Cardinal
Mhm.
and I think nasa ICU na siya sa ICU, they closed the curtains kasi may emergency na, but I was there. I think ako yung nandun, nauna kami ng mom ko eh. I could see a slit. I have to make this kwento. There's a slit. I could see them really reviving my lolo. As in, siguro hindi nilang na-close na masyado kasi emergency na. So parang ako, oh wow, I really saw everything until na nga he passed. Tapos, yung they let us to go in the
Mhm.
room.
Mhm.
Yun lang, siguro ang na-regret ko, I didn't kiss him. Yung, and then my concept of death changed. Kasi parang
Mhm.
if somebody you love passes, hindi siya scary.
Mhm.
Parang you wish nga makita mo sa dreams, ganon, na you
Mhm.
can talk to them. Excuse me. So, yun yung talagang encounter of death na talagang meron na akong matanda na ako na ito, think about it. Pero, yun, after that, hindi na ako takot tumingin sa coffin. Parang
Mhm.
alam ko na yung concept ng death, although I miss him so much. Pero yun, if you love pala someone, it's not scary. It happens, but it's sad. Yun yung talagang, but again, yung with our family, I think because my lolo was such a very smart pa. He fixed everything. So upon the death of my lolo, parang everybody was sad, but everything was fixed eh. So there's no away of anything. Kumbaga how he raised his family was really good talaga. So there,
You're
that is
very
my concept.
fortunate for that.
Yes. So, and ikaw, how about you naman?
I think my first encounter was when my lolo, my dad's dad, passed away. I have like a memory of seeing him also in the ICU. Parang I think he had like mga tubes or whatever. I think that's just my memory. But and also years later, siguro mga 15 years later, my mom's dad also passed away. When I was born, wala na akong lola on both sides. So it was just the two lolos. But I didn't really know them very well. And so I didn't really feel that loss. Tapos, my parents also didn't really discuss any feelings to us. So parang it just seemed like they just went on with their lives. So maybe during that time, or maybe they're thinking they wanted to spare their children the discomfort, or parang there's no need to explain or anything. So wala talagang, there's no like really spoken concept of it. So it just seemed like life went on. And then I guess there's no more lolo. So I guess parang you're kind of like wondering, well, wonder if they felt anything for their own parents. If they did, they didn't discuss it. Or maybe also we learned that uncomfortable feelings were not meant to be shared, I guess. So wala talaga akong concept about really death and loss of a loved one, I guess, as a child. So, you know, when we're kids, it's normal to lose older relatives like grandparents, diba? Or sometimes aunts and uncles. But I think it has more of an impact to you when you lose somebody closer to your age. Like, do you have a first encounter or experience with like losing someone that's like your peer?
Well, yes, you know this also. So it is really my really, really good friend, Abbott. Uh, I think older lang siya sa akin 1 year. But yun, Abbott was just really a good friend. I can spend the whole podcast talking about our adventures, misadventures. Pero yung sad thing about this loss, it was not an accident or any medical condition, but a decision of ending their life and not wanting to stay in the world. So
That's
that
sad.
was a different
A
kind of
different
loss.
feeling. I feel like that's a big, like different thing to
And
deal
yes,
with.
and
Yeah, I was fortunate to meet her, right? And
yes,
she
because
was really such a personality. And I think I only met her for, I don't know, parang 30 minutes lang yata, or 1 hour. It wasn't even very long, but I was already like, oh wow, like who's this girl? And then I didn't know until I think you told me. It was years after it happened na nalaman ko from you that happened. And I think that's a whole different beast of I mean, losing
Yun po.
somebody your age, but losing someone, by suicide, I think it's a whole different animal and something to deal with, right?
Yes. Yeah, and with that story with Abbott, actually, I was trying to hook you up together, I think, eh. Parang gusto ko ata siya ireto. Anyway, that was the
I don't know.
encounter.
I
I think
guess.
that
I
was
mean,
it.
she was cute. She was cute, but I feel like she was probably like way out of my league. Parang ang dami niyang worldly experience. Parang masyado na siyang, parang ano na siya, level 10 na siya. Tapos ako,
Aw,
sinastart ko pa lang yung game. Hindi ko pa alam
alam mo,
yung
natatawa
kunyari,
yun.
parang kung Super Mario Brothers, nandun pa lang ako dun sa umpisa. Hindi ko pa
World
nakikita
1 pa
yung
lang.
first princess or yung castle or whatever. Nagbabounce pa lang ako tapos nahuhulog pa lang ako dun sa mga ganun. Pero siya, nandun na siya dun sa super end and
Yeah,
uh,
but that is
that's,
a
yeah. I feel like she lived like way advanced. Like I think she lived so many years in the short span of time. I feel like I
yeah, ang
didn't know
daming
her that
adventure.
well, but I that's the feeling that I got from her. So that's
Yeah,
sad.
I know. So, ikaw, how about you? Parang yung ka-age mo naman.
So in college, I had a boyfriend who was 7 years older than me. He was a teacher in UP, and we dated for 4 years before he died of leukemia. So I took care of him by myself from diagnosis to when he died. So that was also difficult and traumatic experience for me. So I think I was 21 when he died. So
Wow. So, that's really, I mean, kasi at that age, diba, and you have to take care of someone na in that condition, that's so hard. So, what did you learn about that time? Parang losing that person at that age.
because when you're young, the concept of losing somebody is so foreign, di ba? Kasi parang in your early 20s, you just feel invincible and you feel like the world is in your hands and anything is possible. Tapos someone strong and young biglang mawawala from your existence. It raises so many questions. And I'm sure you feel this way too, like losing Abbott. Because what years you're and how old were you when that happened?
Wow, mga siguro mga 23, 24?
Yeah, so
Mm.
close to my age too when James passed away. But when that happens at that young age, just parang na-terminate lang yung existence nila. Tas ikaw parang ang dami-dami pang nangyari sa'yo. You just feel like, I wonder what they're doing. Di ba? Parang it just feels like there's like a parallel universe where maybe this person exists, or you're wondering like what they're doing, and I wonder what they would be doing through the years. Parang they still exist and you're always wondering kasi nga it's a life that's cut short. So that there was so much potential and there could have been so many more things that happened. So it's always, I feel like that just became part of me to always just wonder, ano kayang nangyari? Like, I mean, I was so young. In reality, I probably wouldn't have ended up with him, but still, it just feels like, yeah, it was like he was so young, and I'm just always wondering. Until now, I always still wonder, ano kaya iniisip niya, like how I am now, or I wonder how he would have turned out. Right. So I feel like losing someone when you're young, it really shakes your foundation. And I feel like it really changes how you see the world. Did you experience that?
Kasi yung kay Abbott, parang, oh, for me, of course, not even Abbott, a lot of my batchmates passed na
Oh, I didn't know that.
accident.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I have a batchmate, sobrang sad. Parang, was one of those who died in a plane crash in Mindanao. It was before. Sobra, yun talaga, for me was like, oh my gosh, parang kakagraduate lang ata namin noon. And part of that plane crash, nandun yung batchmate namin. And we also had, batchmate naman ni Abbott, also, nakilala ko rin, also, took her life. at a young age.
Yeah.
Nasa school pa ata kami noon. So parang, those things really can shake you na parang, for those who took their lives, parang how can
What are they
you ba,
thinking? And
what they're
it's like,
thinking, if something that you could have prevented. Ang dami mong, yun ang talagang
at
dami
just,
mong questions.
especially during that time, hindi kasi yan pinag-uusapan. It's so unheard of, di ba?
Yes.
As
Yes,
parang
mental
what?
illness. Exactly.
Right? Di ba parang isip mo parang what in the world? But now you hear it all the time and you know the reasons and
Exactly.
yeah.
And parang now you really know it can be prevented.
Yeah.
Diba? You just have, you will not even know the signs, but at least you know that they will also know, they're aware maybe of that meron palang ganung, if you feel
You
that
feel
way,
something, there's a way out
can
of
talk,
it.
yes, you can talk to somebody about it, and there's a meaning, there's something, you can define it already, what you're feeling, may definition na siya
Yeah.
ngayon eh.
Kasi there's so many things that you can like watch or read
Yes,
now
read
where
now.
people went through that extreme sadness or depression and either got close or even attempted to take their own life, but they got past it or they didn't succeed, and what their thoughts are afterwards. Madami ng ganyan ngayon, but during that time wala pa kasi.
Wala.
If and it was, I mean, same for me, right? When that thing happened, well, I didn't have the tools.
Of
You
course.
can't Google anything.
Yes.
I didn't probably didn't know what to Google, or if I Googled it, sino naman yung nagpo-post during that time? Probably not experts pa rin. Like the internet wasn't really so
Exactly.
established. So you don't really know. I also went into a depression. I didn't even know if it was called a depression back then. Na parang I was so lost. So, but I didn't had no idea, and I wasn't interacting with anyone, and nobody really knew what to do. I didn't have the supervision of my parents. So parang bahala na,
And
right?
yeah, so with that, so first of all, how did you handle that loss?
I think because I was so young and I didn't have the tools or awareness to deal with anything, didn't have any resources. I think and when you're in that age, it's just like your first heartbreak. You just want to move on and get on with your life, right? You don't really know what you're dealing with. So parang gusto mo lang fast forward na balik na dun sa masaya, right? But it doesn't really
Yes.
work that way. So what if you can't deal with something, like how would you really get past that? So for me, I just probably like did whatever I could to distract myself. Like I dated casually, probably even recklessly. I kind of lost my direction because we had so many plans. I don't even know if those plans would have happened if he didn't die. But I had my plans of going to med school after vet school, and then because I spent so much time in hospitals dealing with doctors after he passed away, I couldn't imagine being part of the medical field anymore. Parang I was disillusioned. So parang okay, ano na ngayon? I was so lost. And I felt so alone, definitely, in my pain. And also, when you're young, kasi parang you want to dismiss the pain. 'Di ba? Kasi parang you want to minimize it. You want to like say to yourself, wala yun, there's so many or whatever. Para kasi you don't want to face the enormity of it. And then I was definitely self-destructive because I believe that the absolute worst had already happened to me. So parang I was just saying to fate or destiny na parang, oh, sige, sige pa. Sige pa. Like, ano pang gusto mo? Game, pahirapan mo pa ako. Like, you already like threw me like the worst possible scenario. So sige pa, kaya ko pa or whatever. So I was just parang daredevil. I didn't really care. So, ikaw, how did you handle that loss or, the news of that?
That was really a shocker. Kasi at that time, we were in the Philippines kasi that time she was already in the States. So talagang shocking news yun. Kasi si Abbott, she really loves the Philippines, although her family's in the States. So what happens is, minsan tumatakas okay yung takas na babalik ng Pilipinas. Ganun siya tumakas sa pamilya niya because she loves the Philippines. So when everybody was looking for her, they thought, baka naman bumalik lang
Mm-hmm.
sa Pilipinas. They couldn't find her. That time we were actually playing softball. We had a game that time. Parang fun game anyway. So, nawawala si Abot. Parang kami, nasaan kaya yun? Uy, baka pabalik na yun dito. Ganon, excited eh. Kasi parang alam namin yung mga ginagawa niyang adventure na, okay, lalabas na lang yan, you know. And then after the game, after several hours, yun na, yung news. Yun, shock. Like, I think, for me kasi, I think, because of my past, my, my dad said, di ba, left us. So parang leaving and my mom didn't really, parang kaya niya eh. She found it. Parang for me, parang when people leave, parang it happens. Ganon. May lolo passed at a young age. I was high school. So parang that was part of the circle of life. Parang yun yung nakikita ko. That time, I couldn't understand. Parang, wait, I think it's the logical thing in me. Parang, let's look nga the evidence. What happened? Ano ba? Ganyan. Totoo ba to? So, long story short, she actually had something written and she gave anay books to me. Alam mo yun,
Meron
photography
talaga
book
siyang,
sa akin. Parang, ah, I wish I could have, walang signs eh. Parang, kasi si Abot din, sobrang tatakutin yun eh. Parang, sabi niya, dude, basta pag namatay ka, wag mo akong tatakutin ha. Ganun. We would talk about things like that. Ganun, bawal magmultuhan. Kasi she's really a super scaredy cat. Ganon. So I'm just like, we would just talk about things like that. Na parang, I couldn't understand, would I respect because that's what she wanted? Alam mo yun, yung parang
wala pa kasi nung time na yun, di ba? Because
I
now,
couldn't
when things
understand.
like that happen, alam mo that it's the disease. It's depression that did that. It's not the
Yes.
person. They're not in their right mind
Eh,
when they think
And
that, right?
and and to think this one is a super complicated pa, 'di
Di ba?
ba?
Oo. Yeah.
It was a complicated scenario,
Scenario.
basically. So we couldn't understand what happened really, 'di
Right.
ba? So ang tagal, I didn't cry for a long. I couldn't cry. Knowing me, I'm so iyakin, 'di ba?
Yeah.
I didn't cry for a long time. Siguro the only time I cried is when the team went to the UP Chapel. Kasi Abbott is a softball team eh.
Yeah.
UP Chapel. And we talked about Abbott and sobra kasi siyang talaga part of our family. My mom was there. My tita was there. Because nga, my tita, they will say Abbott is their another daughter. They call them nga son eh. My son. Abbott. Ganon. So parang talagang part of the family. Yung tipong si Abbott pupunta yun sa bahay ng tita ko, open ng refrigerator, ganon. Yung talagang family talaga. So, hin parang feeling ko nandyan lang siya. Honest, feeling ko nasa States lang siya, with her
Oo.
girlfriend and okay lang, ano man
Kasi,
nagkakwento lang. Kasi every time I would say, do something, siya talaga una ko sinasabi, dude, dapat nandito ka, dami mong gagawa, my gosh, ganun. I would always talk to her when something happens. Anyway, so I don't know if I really handled that grief. Kasi I
it's
couldn't
yeah, and
understand.
also like, we were young, right? So
Yes.
we really didn't have the tools for it. We didn't know what it was called.
Totoo.
What are these
I
like?
couldn't cry.
No, how do you really handle grief? Nobody really talked to us about it. And then parang you just feel like, oh, they just disappeared. Diba?
Yes.
There's just
Yes.
some place
Somewhere.
else, you know. And
Yes.
ako, like, I mean, when that happened to me, I didn't cry. I'm not sure if I ever cried, but not to say that I didn't feel that sadness. I think it manifested itself and still continues to manifest itself to this day, the sadness, the loss. Pero it's like mixed in with all the other reasons to experience grief and loss too. But I'm sure that it's gonna be like I'm probably gonna have to deal with it also for the rest of my life because that's just the nature of it. But before we get on to the whole nature and the whole enormity of grief, I wanted to talk about the stages of grief. It's well known. This was American psychiatrist in 1969, Kubler-Ross. named 5 stages of grief, which is also like they also call it like 5 stages of acceptance too. So denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. So we all go through this, whether we can name it or not. And I guess in your case, merong denial, like, hindi yan, parang ano ba yan? It's just a mistake, right? It's a
Baka nandun pa
mistake.
nga rin ako hanggang ngayon eh.
Kasi parang it's just she disappeared, right? So,
Yes.
then the anger, parang ano ba, bakit? How did that happen? Why did no one prevent it and whatever, right? So there's all that, and then bargaining. I mean, same with me. Well, it was hard to deny, right? Because I took care of him. So nakita ko talaga siya nag-deteriorate, and until the end. You always wonder if there's something that you could have done. Even if it's not suicide, even if it's like an illness or something,
Yes.
it's always like wondering, like maybe I could have done something or whatever. Especially in his case, he actually decided na ayaw na niya mag-treatment because it costs so much money, and maybe he had a feeling na it wasn't gonna work, which was most likely during that time. And also, he didn't have the resources for it. I didn't have the resource. We didn't have the resources for it. So parang ayaw din niyang sobrang mabankrupt lahat ng mga tao. So he actually like kind of decided na one round of treatment lang siya. Tapos ayaw na niya. Right, but we're still like I was so young, so I
went
was so
through that? Oh
hopeful.
my gosh.
I was so hopeful pa rin na parang no, parang Lorenzo's Oil, the movie, na hindi, maghahanap tayo ng secret treatment. No, we're going to pray. We're going to pray. Yung mga ganun na parang fantastical thinking, and also parang no, we'll find a way, hindi talaga. So of course, there was a huge like period of time during the time that he was sick that I was really in denial that he was going to die. I think till the end, actually, because I really believe that he wasn't going to, because I guess he was also, maybe he didn't want to disappoint me in that way na, because he said that he was going to make it for some reason, which is kind of like absurd kasi wala nga siyang treatment. He said that he didn't want to die, so he was going to make it. And so I was just like hanging on to that, faith in that, to the point na I guess nung alam na niya na talagang he was losing the battle, I think he felt like he couldn't tell me. So I think on the day that he thought that he wasn't gonna make it anymore, I think he found a way to contact his mom to come, and I guess deal with the whole part of him dying. Because I still didn't believe, because so all of that, and still didn't believe. And then I was just like, wait, bakit? So finally, namatay na nga siya. And then I was asking, bakit ayaw niya ayaw niya na nandun ako? Bakit hindi niya nasabi sa akin? Like, was I so like insistent? Was I pressuring him so much na hindi niya ma-share sa akin yun? Na hindi na niya kaya? Kailangan pa niyang tumawag ng iba? Whatever. And I had all these questions. I had no one to turn to. Wala namang therapy that time. I was like a student, and I spent everything to like whatever treatment that he needed that we could afford, and then I had to stop school to take care of him. So all these questions that I had to also answer on my own, deal with on my own, not really having anyone to talk to about it, just made me feel so alone in all of it, right? So did you experience tong mga stages na to? Looking back, did you experience this?
Looking back sa passing ni Abbott, I don't think I went through all the stages. I think nga hanggang denial. Maybe may anger, pero hanggang, Because I think, andyan pa rin nga di ba? Parang I can't believe it eh. And we had, kahit kami ni Abbott, we had so much dreams, no? Parang we wanted to talagang feeling namin, kami talaga, who's this? Anyway, if I remember his the writer, who goes around sa States, Jack Kerouac. Feeling namin, ta-travel kami, magra-ride kami by car through across America, 'di ba? So parang anyway, so talagang may dreams kami, no? Ganun
Yeah.
kaming friends. So every time I would think about her, siya yung naiisip ko. But not siguro with that loss, the current loss. I
Mhm.
think I think I have to go through these
Yeah.
stages
Mhm.
because I have to.
Yeah, you
This
have
one,
to.
I think this where I am right now
You can't
is
deny it kasi.
one's the biggest talagang loss, and I've never experienced something like this na
Yeah.
because right now I didn't parang galing. I have to be thankful for everything that's there, all the resources
Mhm.
because I can already define what I'm
Yeah.
feeling. I understand this already. So that's why right now yon I think this is the one that I'm going through these stages.
Yeah, I guess that's good also to note and remind our listeners that when we talk about grief, it's not just about death, right? It's also about loss of any kind, like ending a relationship or losing somebody. It doesn't have to be partner or whatever. Ending a friendship, yung mga ganyan. I think it can, you can really feel the weight of it, and you can't possibly discount something na parang, hindi, breakup lang naman, hindi naman namatay. Sometimes it can feel the same. Sometimes it can feel even worse, right?
Yes.
You know?
Even the word grief, hindi ko talaga nagamit. I mean, that word is just like right now na naiisip ko na, oo nga, no, that's
You are
grief.
grieving.
That feeling. Hindi ko naisip yun dati with my other, breakups. And then, yun nga, you always think grief is when somebody passes. And then you
Yeah.
realize nga that feeling is synonymous to grief, yung loss of a partner and a
Yeah.
breakup ka na. So,
I think what you're going through now is even closer to losing someone to death because you built a life with somebody, especially as an adult, right?
yeah.
With all these tools at your arsenal, the maturity and whatever, and then you built a life of day in, day out. And then parang biglang mawawala yun. It's kind of like losing someone to death, you
That's
know.
true. Ikaw, how about you? Did you go through these stages?
I didn't even know about these stages then. Parang feeling ko nga parang in the last 5 or 10 years lang to narinig. And thanks to the internet, we know all about these stages. But back then, ano ba yan? Wala namang pinag-uusapan yung mga ganyan unless you
Yeah.
get professional help or you're like a psych major. You don't know any of those things. So I was young. I was in such a hurry to get out of the grief period that I just grabbed whatever and whoever I could. And nakwento ko na to before that I actually met my first girlfriend at his funeral. So parang I just decided to just like take that like easy way out, and the rest is history. Like the new world of being a lesbian was so great and exciting. I kind of just like put off my mourning and akala ko that's it, makahanap na ako ng replacement so I don't have to deal with it. But actually, I realized very soon that the process of mourning is something that you can't really escape. So every time that I would be sad within my other relationships or just feeling something, parang babalik kasi sa'yo yon na parang it's gonna pull you back na parang no, you haven't mourned this loss. Kahit i-minimize mo siya, kahit na i-dismiss mo siya, no, it's just some guy or whatever, especially because I also ended up like, not the one I met at the wake, but I also ended up with someone who was very, very heterophobic and really took against me that I dated guys. So talagang pinaliit ko siya. That experience, I made it so insignificant na ginawa kong parang, oh, parang pretty much it didn't happen, or parang buti nga namatay siya kasi whatever, because I had to, because I was with someone who was constantly on my case about being with a guy and feeling these things. So parang there was no place for it. So my reaction to that was, I guess that's also what my mind was looking for, someone to minimize it so much so that it would disappear from me. But it doesn't work that way. It will come back. It will come back. So I learned this quote, really great quote recently that resonated. with me. The author Elizabeth Gilbert, the one who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, um, she lost her partner to cancer. And she said that grief is a bill that has to be paid eventually. So I thought that was so great, such a great way of putting it. So grief is a bill, right? So if your bill, if there's a bill, it's a huge bill. You can't pay it all at once. You can't run away from it. You can negotiate, I guess, an investment plan with someone na parang hindi, sa unti-unti ko to, but I will pay it, I'll go through it. But then random times the debt collector will appear and parang maniningil na parang, hey, you have to go through this, and you will have to go through this, and it's going to be hard. So I think eventually you will need to spend the time with your grief. You really can't escape it, and I think that's the lesson I learned. And as for the am I done grieving that loss, I feel like it's been bundled with all the other sad things, so all the other things that I mourn about myself and the losses that I've had that aren't about death, or just the things that I didn't have that I wish I had. I think it's kind of like bundled up, and it just resurfaces in unexpected ways, and also in ways na parang in-avoid ko kasi, right? So, but then sometimes when I'm sad, parang it's like a wave that comes back na parang instead of you just being sad about this one thing na medyo minor, parang bumabalik na siya na parang how come I didn't get the one thing that I wanted the most? How come I didn't get that chance? How come whatever? And you start to question all these things, and then and that's why pumapatong-patong siya. That's why
Yes.
people become sad and people become depressed, because you don't deal with the things that you need to deal with, right? So
True.
I guess I've learned that you really need to deal with your grief. So I guess I wanted to ask you, what coping strategies have you used, and what things have helped you get through loss and grief? Not limited to death, also heartbreak, loss of
Yes, true.
friendship. It's very timely for you right now
Yes.
because you're grieving something also. So it's
Yes.
very
So,
timely for me to find out how you've been dealing.
yes. So yung grief nga na definition na nangyayari sa akin, I really base it right now,
Mm-hmm.
of course, of the breakup, diba? So, and I think really I need those coping strategies. So,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I also like that right now because of everything that's in the internet and everything that we see. And there's also like awareness,
Mm-hmm.
diba? Like this month, mental awareness month. So parang everything is already defined. As I said a while ago, you can understand already yung nararamdaman mo dito, may ibig sabihin pala yun, na parang
May
you
pangalan.
may pangalan siya, na parang you can acknowledge that feeling na yung emotional pain.
Mm-hmm.
Totoo pala yun, di ba? It's not something that is made up. You really actually feel it and you
Mm-hmm.
can recognize
Mm-hmm.
that pain. So the things that helped me really was actually sharing, as I said it in the
Mm-hmm.
first episode, diba? Actually, I was just sharing it because my friends had to know, right? We
Mm-hmm.
had common friends. Some of the people I knew who had to know, had to know. But I didn't realize that was really helpful. Hindi ko naisip na coping mechanism ko pala yun. But after that, talking to them, I realized that's one of the biggest things that helped me
Mm-hmm.
go through this grief.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I can already also define na I feel anxious. I feel
Mm-hmm.
that weird feeling.
Uh-huh.
And first time, I think I said that also. I meditate na in the morning every
Mm-hmm.
day until now. So my coping is just to give time for myself. I sit down, I also meditate really and just count 100 backwards until 0.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I start my day.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, I actually scheduled an appointment with a therapist. So
Yeah.
So that was really my coping mechanism. I really had to do something about it. Hindi
Mhm.
ko na siya pwede i-dismiss, hindi ko siya pwedeng pabayaan
Mhm.
lang and not do anything about it. I need to help myself because siguro I wanted to know how I can move forward
Mhm.
with this grief or loss that
Mhm.
I'm feeling right now.
I really admire that in
Uh,
you, especially asking for help and asking for help from your friends, and and most especially asking for professional help, right? It's a different world that we live in now, right? To be able to name these things, I think it's the first step. Kasi nung araw, wala kasing tawa. Like you can't. You're just like, I'm sad. I'm just gonna cry. You don't know. You can't like name it and say it's anxiety. I can Google anxiety and how to deal with anxiety or get everybody's
yes.
experience. There's so much stuff out there to that can help you. So I'm glad that you're taking those steps, and also you're practicing mindfulness, right? So
I do.
that's
Yeah,
that's very nice. I'm
I
glad.
really.
I feel like you're doing great, actually. Of course, not to say that it's not a sad thing anymore. I'm sure you have your moments, but I think you're doing really well. And
Thank
I think I
you.
already told you this before, that I'm not really worried about you. I'm here for you, but I'm not really, really worried. You're going to be
Thank
fine.
you. Yeah, it's really ikaw. So if it's really yun nga, because of all the things that you are aware of,
Uh-huh.
you know you have to do something and you can do something about it. It's not like
Mhm.
you're at a loss and you would
Mhm.
just say, anong gagawin ko na ngayon? 'Di ba? You won't even say, what will I do
Mhm.
now? There's so many resources. So
Mhm.
with you, how about you? How have you dealt with the loss of anything? And
It-
can you share with
I
our
think
listeners?
um since that happened to me, and it happened to me such a young age, I feel like it's made me so much stronger. I mean, I'll talk about all those benefits like later on in our conversation, but what has helped me is to really understand that the process of grief, it's not uh finite. Like it's not like you go through it tapos na. It's for
Yes.
life, whether we like it or not. It never ends. Especially if that person meant anything at all to you, you will mourn that loss for the rest of your life. Like, with James, I was with him for 4 years. I was so young, so a lot of that was actually parang, I don't even know, you call it puppy love. It's very like, not even like, I feel like not even like such a like a groundbreaking like love story. I don't consider it that way. But just because I shared part of my life with him, I carry that loss with me, and it's been uh 25 years. Yeah, I think 25 years, something like that, or more. But I still think about it, and it's not so sad anymore. Parang it's just like something that you carry, that just goes through life with you, that sometimes you check on it, and sometimes it taps you on the shoulder to remind you that's still part of your life. And if you've ever lost someone to death, I feel like eventually it takes on a new meaning, right? Because from pain, you learn to see this a little more fondly. Kasi it's like a remembrance of that person. Instead of a reminder of loss, it's a reminder of that person. So it becomes like more of like a positive. Don't they always say that grief is just love with nowhere to go? So that means that you really feel so much for this person, but you have no place to put it. I was listening to a podcast today about grief, and they put it like really nicely, and they said that death is like closing a door on a large room where there are so many things that you still need, but there's no re-entry. So you're standing outside that room, and you can only remember what you've lost, and you can't ever replace them, right? But so you just miss all those things. And especially in your case, or any case of like loss, if you built your life with someone, you remember that life and every part of it as something that you can't have anymore. It's like another world that you can't have. So you just make the most of that memory, and you carry on somehow, not being able to reach the things that you love and you miss. So I thought that was a nice way of putting it, but it's always there. It's always there. It's always a part of you, right? So it I wish there was a way to forget everything, right? But we mentioned this before in the movie,
Yes.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
Spotless
Mind,
mind. Yes.
where the whole point of the story is that if you erase the bad and painful parts, you also erase the good parts. And you don't want to erase the good parts. You really don't. So unfortunately, it it comes with it. It comes with grief, and grief always comes with love. Diba? We always say that. We always
Yes.
say that. It's always a uh I feel like the moment you meet somebody, you fall in love, or with that first kiss, nakasulat na yung paano mawawala yung tao na yun sa'yo. Right? The pain is already in that first touch of that person. It's already going to happen, and you are destined to experience the extreme pain along with the extreme joy. It's a promise, actually. So that's why it's so scary. And maybe this is something that we know because we've lived and lost and gotten over failed relationships, or we've lost someone to death. You already know that love is a ticking bomb. Actually, it's the most wonderful thing in the world, but it's the most horrendous punishment when it's just part of it. Wag kang, I always say this, wag kang magmamahal if ayaw mong mawalan, because that's just hand in hand. uh you mentioned in, I think, our second episode, that what I said before, na lahat, all relationships end, depende na lang kung anong reason. And that's part of it.
Yes.
The moment you love, you're going to lose. And maybe sometimes I feel like because nawalan ako, parang pinipreempt ko na. Right? So parang, okay, maybe I'm so negative, right? Na parang every happiness ko, iniisip ko na ay, mawawala to sa akin eventually. But on the flip side of that, if I know this is going to end, you're damn sure I am going to make the most of it. I am going to taste it. I am going to feel it. Parang gagasgasin ko talaga yung feeling na to. If I'm in love, parang I will do
Yes.
everything. If I have to go through the extremes of emotion, if I have to embarrass myself, if, I am not going to hold back, because it's going to disappear. So that's, I think, one of the lessons that loss has taught me. So
Wow.
in your case, since you're also dealing with loss and grief right now, what's helped you to move forward?
I think we've discussed this also, diba? So for once, my future goals talaga. Kasi when you're in a relationship naman, as I said, those things that you have for yourself won't change, diba?
Mm-hmm.
It's that you're sharing your life with somebody.
Uh-huh.
And just my love for life, really. Because when I say life, I know the good, the bad. It happens, diba? It's part of life talaga. That's why I'm grateful that I'm alive and I can feel all those things. And to just know what the future holds. Diba? I don't know what it is, but because life is so exciting, I guess because we've moved forward with our grief, nadaanan natin yun, nakayanan natin, you know it's gonna get better, you just don't know when.
Mm-hmm.
But those thoughts in my head, as you said, talagang you make the most out of it. Kahit naman ikaw din, you don't know for yourself until when.
Yeah, you
Diba?
don't know.
Yes, you don't, when you're younger ka, you don't even think about it. You can do anything that's so dangerous. Dapat nung bata ka pa lang, may nangyari na sa'yo, di ba? And then when you're older, that's when you're just so super cautious because na-survive mo na yung batang
Yeah.
stage na you were reckless. Oh my gosh, right? Drinking, driving. Ang dami mo nang ginawang things that,
Kagaguhan.
di ba, na magiging harmful sa'yo talaga na you didn't even think that something may have happened at that age, di
Yeah.
ba? So right now, it's because of that. I'm just looking forward to what's going to happen. I'm going through the sadness, but I know that it's going to, as you said, hindi ko makakalimutan, everything that happens is part of your life eh. It's
Mhm.
there. Diba? It's how you would like to control it. Would you wanna stay sad for a
Mhm.
long, long, long time? It's your decision talaga eh.
Mhm.
So that's how I'm dealing with it eh. Um, I'm getting some nice tools from my therapist. So there are a lot of things that I'm learning
Mhm.
or relearning actually. Sometimes you tell that to your friends and you realize, oh, oh nga naman,
Alam ko
'di ba?
naman yun eh.
Alam
Like
mo na
you
pala yun,
need to
exactly,
be
'di ba?
reminded.
It's just you are in that situation. Kaya minsan nagiging clouded na yung thoughts mo and you're parang lost sometimes. Pero yun sa akin. So that's how I'm just helping myself move forward is just really just thinking of the goals I've had for myself.
Mhm.
Ang galing nga, there's this movie, I forgot, basta it's with Susan Sarandon na parang about loving and losing that partner. Parang that movie said parang it's okay because you went into relationship because you want to share
Mhm.
what you have. I have to look for that. You're just sharing your life with that person. Parang
Mhm.
this good kwento. Oh, gusto mo na ikwento and you have a partner. But if they're gone, then you just have no one to share it with.
Mhm.
It's not like they're your life or, you know, it's just because you want to share the happiness that you're having and then that other person wants to be
Mhm.
with you that they can share also their life with that person. So
Mhm.
it's sad. Yeah, if that person doesn't want to be with you anymore, that's it. But again, it's up to you how long you want to stay in that sad moment and to move on. So eventually, I'm going to decide already how I want to move forward.
I think like the good part about the fact that we've been through so many things and so many
Yes.
heartaches and whatever experiences in life. uh I think binanggit ko na to before. Alam mo na hindi mo ikamamatay. Right? Kasi ginawa mo na lahat eh, tas hindi ka pa rin namatay. Like, you've experienced this most, like, saddest, devastating thing. Hindi mo ikinamatay. So, you know that there's a way out. You know that you just have to sit with it. You know that you're eventually going to find your way. Right? So,
Yes.
that's
Kahit
the
yung mga,
beauty of it.
yeah,
That's the beauty of it, I think. Uh, and I guess because we're older and we've been through so much, we can tell other people who are going through loss and heartache for the first or second time na it just feels like it's so much. You know that you can share that no, there's a way out of it and eventually it's going to get better. And you know it
yes.
for sure.
Kasama na yung mga disappointments mo sa buhay. Yun nga, yung feeling na parang there was something that's not good or positive. As long
Mm-hmm.
as you get through that, add that to your experience bank in your brain and you can go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Ikaw, so what has helped you also move forward in time of grief?
Um, I think taking the good parts of what you lost and using it as guideposts for your life. I think you try to remember the person, kind of honoring them by memories, sharing with others if you can, or like what you're doing, getting professional help if you can also. Um, uh, Sometimes celebrating anniversaries or special days or using keepsakes as an opportunity to remember the person, I think helps also. And for me, I think what helps me is this urge to kind of live right by them, by the person that you lost.
I like that. Yeah.
To this day, I always wonder what he thinks of me. You know, he was so young, so I don't even know if he was going to end up to be a great guy or whatever. But he was a nice enough guy when he was with me, super smart, But I wonder what he thinks of me now. Have I been good? Have I lived life to the fullest? Because he didn't get the chance, right? So parang ako kasi, ang bata-bata niya namatay. So I just also kind of took it upon myself to be like, alam mo, hindi siya nagkaroon ng chance na yun eh. So parang I am going to do everything that he probably wishes he could have done. And it's so interesting because that guy absolutely probably more than you loved New York more than anything. And I was just like, New York, parang, and then while I was with him, I had a chance to go to New York as a teenager. Tapos ako parang, ano ba yan? Parang kubaw lang naman kung New York ka pa. Like, I didn't even make a big stink of it. And siya parang, one day, makakarating din ako dyan sa New York na yan. And then, I guess some twist of faith, I ended up in New York and lived there for 20 years. So parang it's so crazy, right? It's parang I wonder what he would have thought of that. Like, oh wow, I became a New Yorker and kind of like lived out his fantasies and what would he have done? And also he was very creative. He was an artist and really gifted writer and poet too. So I always ask myself, have I been true to that calling as a creative person? I wonder if he would have been happy. Am I maximizing the gifts that were given to me because he couldn't? He couldn't, and he probably would have wanted to. So I'm hoping that he would have been happy with what I've accomplished, but also I feel like he would know that I'm capable of more and I'm not really applying myself as I should, is what I'm thinking. But all that, it leads to inspiration coming from loss. So when
Wow.
I think about moving forward when it comes to grief, I always remember that I want to live life to the fullest on behalf of those who didn't get that chance,
That
right?
actually that's really nice, 'di ba? Na parang you're still given that gift of life.
Mhm.
Exactly. Make full use of it, what you have. Ako with Abbott talaga, sa kanya naman, every time I think about her, it's just really whatever happens, dude, alam mo, I'm just really talking to her. Na parang the first time I came here, sabi ko, oh my gosh, I'm here. Eh, she lived in the West Coast, diba? So when I got my first time to arrive here in North America was in the West Coast. I was like, dude, nandito na ako. And then when I went to San Francisco, I went to the Museum of Jack Kerouac. Dude,
Abot!
I'm
Saan ka na?
here. Nasan? I'm here. We're here. So I really went uh, because that was us. Every time, I would always, if something happens, kung may partner,
Mhm.
siya lagi. Kumbaga, I knew we would have shared everything that's
Mhm.
happening. Kahit, even na I know, that's why I feel that she's just there. Kasi nga, hindi naman kami laging sobrang magkasama. Hindi kami yung, in high school, hindi kami yung barkada. Because we really became closer when we got into college. And sa softball nga. So, I knew her friends too kasi same high school din kami. Pero as in everything good that's happening, I know nandun siya na parang I always imagine. Kasi that's why it's nice with Abbott kasi all good memories talaga eh. And it was just abruptly stopped. Kasi nga that time, hindi na kami nag-uusap masyado kasi ang bagal ng email. Hindi naman ganun kabilis dati, no? Kumbaga, magpapakita siya ng picture, ang bagal lumalabas sa email yung picture, you have to wait. So anyway, so I think parang dun lang siya. Parang ang tagal mo lang friend na hindi nakikita. And then
Mhm.
magkukwento ka lang. And I would imagine nga rin, 'di ba, yung mga Facebook post, IG feeling ko meron siyang ganun. Those things. So with Abbott nga, it's just really also doing exactly parang things that we would have done together.
Mhm.
And then I think you'd want to share something you've listened to a podcast.
Yeah, way before the two of us decided to do this podcast, I read something about Anderson Cooper's podcast because he started a podcast when he lost his mom, Gloria Vanderbilt, diba? Um, so he was grieving his mom, left a bunch of like all her stuff to him, and he didn't know that she left notes everywhere, just random notes of just like, hey, this is the your dad's pajamas. Like his dad died when he was 10 years old of like a heart disease or something. So he decided to start a podcast because he was also feeling so much grief from losing his mom. Also, his dad passed away when he was 10, and also his brother died by suicide in front of their mom when he was 23. So sobrang tragic. And then finally, nung namatay na yung mom niya, parang feeling niya na parang siya na lang yung naiiwan who is feeling all of this grief. So he decided na gagawa siya ng podcast interviewing people and how they've dealt with grief. So I started listening to this years ago. And so when we came up with this topic, I remember this podcast and I wanted to review it and some of the things that I learned before because I thought that they were very helpful and educational. So I have a few favorite episodes from this podcast and just kind of like listed down the things that I learned. So one of them is that if we're tempted to shut down grief, it also shuts down joy. It shuts down aliveness. So he had one guest, this psychologist named Francis Weller, who specializes in grief, and who said that as a society we are all obsessed with happiness. When we feel sadness or when we feel loss, parang we just want to feel happy already because it's the obsession. But he reminded everybody that the goal of life is actually not to be happy. The goal of life is to be alive, to feel everything. So actually vitality, it comes with grief. So I thought that was one interesting thing. And then also like grief is so scary, 'di ba? Kasi it's something unknown. You don't want to deal with it kasi baka mamaya sobrang malungkot and hindi mo makayanan or something. So, there's a part there where they said that if you keep avoiding grief, you kind of limit your life because you create this person who's not affected by the grief and not recognizing the loss. You kind of lie to yourself and you lie to everyone. De, okay lang ako. I did, that was not a meaningful person. It wasn't really, wala yon. I'm ready to move on. So you kind of like create an alternate like persona. And you wear masks for people and also for yourself because you don't want to face the emptiness of your loss. So you kind of end up like lying to yourself and you keep the person that you're supposed to be after that loss so far away and you never become that person kasi nga ayaw mo aminin that you're affected by that. So some tips that they gave to kind of deal with grief if it's so scary is to safely touch the grief. Some people write journals or some people they spend short moments with their grief and then you step back out when just to know that you can actually step away. It's related to what you said earlier about when you're thinking about something and you don't want to think about it anymore. There are ways where you can actually step out so that it doesn't swallow you and you're not overwhelmed by it. And also to remind yourself that you actually control this process, na hindi ka parang it's just going to eat you up. I think which is the fear, right? The fear of it all is that it's gonna eat you up. So and then like I said earlier, where you create like another persona, you kind of uh you kind of create a performance. Pagka ayaw mo kasing mag-deal, you just para siyang, yeah, you create a performance of being fine, you know? So I think when you're avoiding it, you step outside your life, and the life that you're living becomes fiction. Kasi hindi siya yung totoo. It's not the person that you really are and that you're meant to be after experiencing that. Because you're pretending that you're still that person before, and you're not anymore, and you'll never be that same person before your loss. So one very notable guest that they had on that show is Stephen Colbert. He has a show, how
Yes.
I didn't know
And
this,
yeah.
but when he was 10 years old, his dad and two brothers died in a plane crash. So he's
Mm.
kind of like an expert on grief. And he's also actually devout Catholic. So it's
Super.
very like godly, which is interesting, right? Because his show is
It shows,
very like
yes.
liberal. So actually to kind of like reconcile that with his religious background is always interesting to watch. So
Yes.
he quoted Tolkien when
Mm.
he said in the show, "What punishments of God are not gifts?" So the worst thing that has happened to you is actually a gift. You might not wish that it ever happened, but it is a gift to you. Life is a gift, and pain is part of life. And if you love life, you have to also accept the pain that comes with it. Going through this suffering, you know, it gives us all the blessing of realizing that everybody is suffering somehow. Everybody is going through this pain. You become more attuned to another person's pain kasi alam mo, um, they're going through something. So if they make mistakes or they act in a way that is inappropriate or hurts you, I think it's easier for you to empathize na, oh, they're going through something because
True.
you've gone through it too. And you give people more leeway. You're more forgiving. You empathize with them more, so that's part of it. And then he also asked, can we learn to love the things that we most wish never happened? So he said that if you are grateful for your life, you have to be grateful for all of it. You can't just be grateful for the good times. You have to be grateful for the bad times. Otherwise, you don't love life. You only love, the pleasure of it. And
Yes.
you don't
Totally
love the
agree.
pain, right? Kasi we forget that. Kasi, of course, who wants to suffer? No one wants to suffer. No one wants to feel pain. But unfortunately, this is like a package deal, right? It's like being in a relationship. You love someone so much. You're so happy with them. But along with, building a successful relationship is so much pain, so much self-examination, so much sacrifice, and so many challenges you can't even imagine. And pain is part of all of it, right? So that's something to also apply into grief, right? That it's just part of it and it can't be avoided, so I guess we should remember that grief, it's not a trap because it's scary. So it just feels like it's a trap na hindi ka na makakawala, and it's just
Yes.
going to eat you
Totoo
up. Like
yun.
when you're sad, di ba? Parang it just feels like, and I
Never
get this,
ending.
yeah, it's never ending. I can't see my way out of it. I'm in
Yes.
so much pain. I just want to cry. Nobody can help me. I'll never get over
Yes.
it. And that's why I really understand people who are so sad that they think of self-harm, because I've been there so many times where I'm so sad and I just feel like there's the only way out of this is not to be alive. And so sometimes we think of grief that way and sadness that way. We think that it's a trap that's going to eat us alive, so we try our best to really stay away from it. But it's actually not a trap, it's a doorway to the
Uh-huh.
person that you should be. So, and if you don't go into that doorway and deal with your grief, you're going to forget the true self and the person you're meant to be. So, and you're gonna forget what you need in life, right? Like what you mentioned earlier, you have to focus on your goals and the things that you want. You wouldn't have really, really done that if you're not going through what you're going through right now. And then you think about what you can become after everything that you've lost, So, uh, that's a long thing, but I just had to share because
Yeah,
it's so
it's really nice.
valuable. If anybody is going through something or they just want to listen to a really, really good podcast with really good guests and really opens your mind to all sorts of grief and loss and just basically living, Anderson Cooper's podcast, All There Is, I think is one of the best podcasts out there right now.
I'll
But
listen to that.
moving on in our topic, what if hindi ikaw, but it's a friend of yours who's going through loss? How do you think you can help them?
Ako talaga, listening is very, very important. So, even though na feeling mo alam mo na yon, 'di ba? It's it can be really different for each individual, 'di ba? Parang as something that you are able to cope with, some people cannot, 'di ba? So,
Mhm.
listening is really very important, and then you validate what they're feeling.
Mhm.
That's for me. If you're listen, that's what I do to my friends. I listen, I validate their
Mhm.
feelings, and then I would sometimes ask, do you just want me to listen today, or can I share my thoughts? And then
Mhm.
after that, you can share your thoughts, because I think knowing that someone has gone through that,
Mhm.
and then they're able to explain or tell them how they cope with it, would help the other person. So if you
Mhm.
share that experience and that person says, okay, hindi kami pareho pero parang similar, I think I'll be able
Mhm.
to do this.
Mhm.
And after that, I would really check on that person.
Mhm.
I think that's also one thing I really, really um learned right now, and talagang it helped me. I think because of everything that we know that checking on a person is
Mhm.
very important. Just saying kamusta, my gosh, you and Ross, sobra. Just, hi Leah, how are you? And I've had that with a lot of people, and just asking me from 1 to 10, how are you feeling today? Mga ganon. Alam mo yun, just that. And then
Mhm.
I said this also in the last podcast, and that's it. Diba? You don't have to take your whole day and
Mhm.
hours of just talking to that person. Hindi eh. It's just actually two sentences, and that person will be okay. That I've learned is very important. That's what I'm doing also right now. Just asking, how are you? Kasi ang laking-laking bagay yan, na knowing that somebody is there, ready to help if
Mhm.
they wanna talk. Because not everyone is open to talking like me.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm shy about that, but knowing that they ask how I am, that means they'll give me 5 minutes or 8 minutes of their
Mhm.
time, which I learn is enough ata. I think that's what I learned. It comes in my feed eh. Minsan nagugulat ka lang yung
Yeah.
mga feed na pumupunta
Oh,
sa'yo, like
parang do you have 4 minutes or
8 minutes.
something? And you have eight
Yeah,
minutes today.
to just listen and to talk to it
Mhm.
will help right away. 'Di ba? So, yun yung mga things na ginagawa ko, just listening and then giving that time, and just also checking up after. Ikaw
Mhm.
naman, what ideas can you give people who would like to help others in the grieving process?
Yeah. So I think the problem with grief is that it's scary. And the reason it's scary is because it's very lonely. For anybody who's lost someone, you're the only one who knows that exact loss, the exact shape of that person that you lost and what they meant to you, right? So what you lost, the life that you were building together, you know that person's exact laugh that affected you in that way, just the whole like person, it's very unique to you and nobody else has felt the exact same way. So when someone comes up to you and says and wants to talk about the person that you lost, When you share stories about that person, it makes another person know them. And you can share what they meant to you, right? So it's, it makes you less lonely because now someone is understanding that the what you lost, and also the kind of person that you loved. So when someone is part of it, it's not just parang when you lose some, kasi parang feeling mo it just becomes black na naging nothing, parang ano yan, biglang nag-disappear na lang ba siya. But if you share it with somebody, it doesn't disappear because then you relive the memory. So parang that person stays alive and you can share it with someone. And that makes grief more tolerable when you can share it with someone else. So I feel like if you have a friend struggling with grief, the best way to help them is to just sit with them and let them know that you recognize their sadness, right? We live in such an avoidant culture, especially mga Pinoy. Not just when it comes to death and grief. Anything that is uncomfortable, like, wag na yan, mag-inuman na lang tayo. Or di-dismiss mo, like, lungkot mo naman, yung iba nga dyan, mas mahirap yung dinadala nila eh. Parang, iba nga dyan, ganyan eh, may sakit eh. Ikaw, dapat you have to be grateful for what you have. Wala ka nga sakit. Yung mga ganon, it's very dismissive. And it's really not helpful. Right? The most important thing that you can do is just sit with the person, identify their pain, and just be like, oh, that's very sad. And I can't even imagine what you're going through. Or parang, I know you're very sad and it's very hard right now, right? Yung just be with them. You don't have to solve anything, you know. Acknowledge their sadness and their grief, know that, let them know that while sadness and, grief are always going to be there, so will you. You can assure them that you'll be with them every step of the way. You can help them be, less lonely by being interested in the stories that they tell, right? And so they're not alone in seeing grief as something good, and you keep the memory of the person alive too, like, just parang may karamay ka to carry that load, kasi parang, and I see this happen a lot, na parang even sa breakup, or pag namatayan, at a certain point, parang nagsasawa na yung mga tao na parang, ano ba yan, puro na yan na lang yung pinag-uusapan, or, parang tama na, parang sobra naman, can we talk, and it's like, it doesn't, maybe ikaw nagsasawa ka na, but your friend is still carrying this, right? And we're so dismissive now because we don't leave any room for grief anymore. Naalala mo yung time, I think this was in the 80s, pagka namamatayan ka, you wear a black pin. Diba?
Yes.
For a year. Wala nang susot na ngayon. At least I don't see it anymore.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Hindi na nagsusot nun eh. And that pin, you wear it for one whole year. Right? And the symbolism of that pin is to tell everybody that you are in a mourning period for 1 year. Right? So automatically, the people will be reminded na parang, oh, may pinagdadaanan to. You give them more, grace, more understanding. Nang nakita mo yun din, oh, kamusta na, and whatever. And then you kind of remember that person, like the person that they lost together, kung kamag-anak yun or what. But there was that part of our culture that doesn't exist anymore. And we're always tempted to just fast forward. And then you leave this person who's dealing with this and carrying this for life. You leave them alone, and it's sad. It's really sad and lonely. And like, I moved away from Los Baños like as soon as that happened, really. So whoever yung nakakilala sa kanya, parang I'm not really in touch with anymore. At least who knew him in the way that I did. So parang there's not really like anybody to share that loss with. So parang in some way, parang I guess parang kay Abbott, right? It's like, hindi, nandiyan lang siya somewhere. It's not really like lost because it's not, you don't get a chance to kind of relive that person. So if you can be that friend to others, then I think that's going to be very helpful, to
Yes.
help others also. So I guess moving on, I've had such a great time again because we just
Yes.
lose track of time, but we do have
Yes.
to wrap it up. What
So,
final words can you share with our listeners on this
so
topic? Any
yeah,
last
so
tips?
actually, yeah, the topic, no, I just recently found out about, uh, hindi naman siya trending, but something in TikTok right now. It's called the grief talk.
Mhm.
So because nga it was Mother's Day, so there were like sisters who lost their mother recently. Since it's also a mental wellness month, um, it was like something they did to their mom.
Mhm.
They parang did some it's a little funny, parang to just lighten up everything, but it's because nga Mother's Day and then their mother passed, and then kumbaga it's also a grief nga na they had to go through. So they, yun nga, nag-trend ngayon grief talk. So one of this is they were just, what they did was make it lighter. Parang they did some confessions,
Oh,
parang,
I think I've
mommy,
seen
tumakas
this.
ako. Those things. It's like something light that they,
Mhm, mhm,
na parang confessing to their mom who's no longer there. And then eventually it grew. Others naman were already talking about the grief itself. So knowing about this and seeing it, parang nako-comfort sila, 'di ba, na they're not alone. I think that's a
mhm,
big thing now. You realize that na kasi nga grief, you think sometimes sa'yo lang kasi nangyari lang
mhm,
sa'yo,
mhm,
'di
mhm,
ba? And you feel that you're the one only carrying it at the moment. But
mhm,
knowing that there are other people out there
mhm,
who are also carrying something that's really hard on them, I think it's
mhm,
helping to cope with it,
mhm,
diba?
mhm,
And one thing I've learned also through my therapist is self-compassion, diba? Na parang you have to take care of yourself also, right?
mhm,
Something, bad things happen, people get sad, but you shouldn't really be hard on yourself.
mhm,
Take care of yourself because that's very, very important.
mhm,
So with that's again a nice topic, really something that we really should face. Grief is hard, really hard, but I think it's something that you just have to face, not accept, but just
it's part
be
of
there
life.
and just
Mhm,
feel it.
mhm,
That's what I learned. Ikaw, how
mhm.
about you? Final words.
Um, Short cuento, in 2010, I feel like we lost so many people that year. Ross's aunt passed away, who was like a mom to her, and then we had like three friends who like passed away from like cancer. And one of those friends was really close to us. Her name was Vin. And we really we were with her throughout her whole illness, especially in her final days. And I just remember, before she passed, she was mourning that she wouldn't be able to see her kids grow up. And she's like, what I would give to
Oh,
see, my daughter graduate from high school, or just see what she's gonna be like as a grown up, or even just a few years older. I'm not gonna be around. And so I think that struck me, and I always I've always been inspired by that ever since she passed away, that I just felt like I have to live in honor of those people who can't. So whatever it is I'm doing, especially when I'm running, or like I'm doing like some kind of crazy endurance race, like marathon, half marathon, or triathlon, or whatever it is. And I'm just like, oh shit, this is so hard. I think about the people that we've lost and what they would give to just be outside, breathe the fresh air, do something, right? They can't ever do that anymore. And I have all the opportunity to do it. So, what am I going to do with these years that have been given to me? Like, not because I'm a nicer person, they were all deserve to live longer than I probably should, but I'm the one who's alive. So, what am I going to do with it? I always try to live life with gratefulness. I don't want to take things for granted. I feel like doing that is disrespectful to those who would have done anything to have that chance. So I think that kind of like permeates into every aspect of my life, of like um it just gives me a completely different outlook. I think when you've lost somebody, it changes. It really changes how you see the world because you can't take things for granted anymore. When you lose somebody, especially someone in your same age, the smell of a flower is not just the smell of a flower anymore. It's you're kind of like breathing this in for everybody who can't. You have a renewed appreciation for every single thing and sensation in every part of life, even if it's happiness or sadness. It's something that was given to you for some reason. So you need to really make the most of it. So I mentioned earlier when really terrible things have happened to you, you just wonder like, what else have I got to lose? I've already lost everything. So with that mindset, you really I think you really internalize the fact and the question of what else are you going to do before your time runs out. Like your future, you learn early on that your future is not promised because some people don't get that chance. So you're living, you want to live and love like there's no tomorrow. I think that is grief's greatest gift to me, is reminding me that the next day is never promised. Anything can happen. So, make each day count, every single day before you end it. Let all the people you love know how much you love them. It's cheesy. It sounds really cheesy, and we've heard it since high school. Parang, oh, cheesy naman yan. Pero pag nawalan ka talaga, you really will learn how fragile and short life is. So you really have to, I feel like, even err on the side of giving too much than too little para wala kang regret, right?
Yes.
So
Totally
that's
agree to that. Wow.
that's what I have.
Great conversation we had today, grabe. Especially this time nga of month of mental health awareness, diba? Really very important to think of our well-being as always. Thanks, Kia. It's a nice episode.
Yeah, I really liked it again. So thanks for joining us again today.
This has been another episode of Salt and Pepe Podcast.
Hope you all enjoyed this conversation, and you know where we are. You know to follow us. Di na pa ulit-ulit, but and our regular listeners, thank you so much for being there, and I hope you enjoyed this. And
yes, for our
drop us
listeners,
a line, right?
Thank you also. Yes, keep on sending us messages. It's really nice to hear from you. And again, put some comments and you can always message us as well. And
That's
with
it.
that, thank you so much again for
live
listening.
Life to the fullest.
Yes.
You only have one.
Oh,
ano
yes.
ba yung sabi nila? Life is not a dress rehearsal.
Oh, yes. It's already the live performance na. That's nice.
You only get one chance. So make the most of it. And thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kia. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye. Thanks for letting us spice up your day.
Keep on listening to Salt and Pepe Podcast.
Konting alat.
Konting anghang.
And Pepe all around.
This has been Lia
and Shakira.
See you next time.